Hello, hello, hello. How are you all doing? Hope everyone's good. Monday. Tuesday. It's meant to be Monday. I'm doing good, thanks, Samantha. Hope you're all well too. Yeah. Memorial Day yesterday. Hope everyone had a lovely Memorial Day. Here in the UK, it was a bank holiday, so it made sense to push the stream to today. Okay, drapery. We're going to do drapery. We haven't done drapery in a while, and I want to talk about it. I'm going to, I've got some notes and some thoughts about drapery and how we handle it. And there's some images I want to share with you guys, but I do want to also wait till we have a few more people aboard. So I think what we can do is we'll start the first pose, and then we'll talk about drapery, and then we will, yeah, we'll continue drawing. So let's do that. Let's get started. Move my keyboard here. All right. Oh, let me reset the timer. What is drapery? Material, Hemant, clothing, could be many things, right? Could be a cape on Superman, could be clothing, it could be a blanket, anything material based basically is drapery. It's kind of like a catch-all term for it. But there's some rules to drapery which I think we need to look at. So the figures that we are drawing today are partially clothed, partially or fully clothed, for those of you who have the reference, as you can see. But here's the thing with drapery. Let's get started. The thing with drapery is we still want to, at least to some degree or another, actually I'm going to draw this a bit smaller. We do want to draw the form. It's important to kind of, the way that we can think about it is, the model is like a elaborate clothes hanger. And so we want to draw the form that's underneath the drapery. We don't have to go crazy with it, but we want to draw it enough so that the material hangs in a way that feels correct, right? That's oftentimes you'll see people drawing drapery and they haven't given enough consideration to the form that sits underneath, and it all just feels a little compromised, if that makes sense. So we don't need to go crazy, but we do want to at least understand where the large ideas are. Okay. Now, why have I drawn so much smaller than I usually do? Because the drapery, you'll see, is hanging down in such a way. Fluid clothes. Well, here's the thing, Hemant. There is a fluidity to drapery. But I also think it's kind of useful to not get too fluid. Okay, so our subject is standing on a box. Her feet are roughly about here. The box is coming out to about there. That will be relevant. Okay, so she is holding a stick, sitting in here. This hand is about here. Would you recommend following along with the drawing or watch and listen? Amaris asks. I would say you could do either, Amaris. Really, I don't think there's a right or a wrong there. Maybe to draw along and then pause when there's something that feels like it requires your undivided attention. Like selfishly, I'd say, you know, if you have access to the reference, if you're a member, then, you know, you can do both. So, drapery tends to have an origin point. One of the origin points here is obviously it's resting on her head. But look at the way that we can see the drapery kind of reveal itself back here and come down this way, but it's still starting its journey up there, even though it only reveals itself here, because we've got this other drapery in front of it here, right? And I am going to share reference, at least on screen, for some drapery ideas for all of you folks, regardless of whether you're members or not, so you will see that. But as I said, I'll do that after this drawing. So I'm just blocking in large ideas right now. And there's going to be somewhat of a common theme as far as how I approach this. But just large shape. Then got this fold coming down this way. All right. Something like that. Told you we'd need the extra real estate. Okay, then on this side, it's kind of coming down this way. About there, that she is holding this stick. Let's get that in. Something like that. Hola Fernando, buenas tardes. I guess Dank Lulu is hiding in chats. Dank might show up later. Lulu tends to come a little later sometimes. Maybe Lulu won't be with us today, who knows? Maybe the Tuesday thing is an issue for them. Or not, we'll see. If you ask a question and give two choices, Richard will always have a third answer. Yes, true. Okay, so once again, where's the material come from? It's coming from up here, but it reveals itself about here. Coming down this way, and then like so. Okay, I'll get us in the ballpark. So the one thing that you'll see as a reoccurring theme with drapery is the design language of it, because it really does have a very different design language to human anatomy, which is really useful because it means that when we're drawing it, we can bring that distinction into our work. The large idea with this, and I'm going to be reiterating this several times throughout the stream, is essentially triangles. Yeah, triangles. Material, drapery, in general, tends to reveal itself in the form of triangles. And I'm going to show you some very compelling evidence to support that idea. So what it means is, it means that the design language that we use for it differentiates itself from the design language that we can use for anatomy, which tends to, at least generally speaking, be a little bit more organic. Even though good drapery done well will have an organic quality, there's still this triangle problem, not problem, this triangle thing to kind of, for us to get our heads around. Amaris, you should have. Are you a member of, or like, are you an actual member of the? Because you see, members have access to the reference. I'm not seeing you on there, Amaris. So there's a possibility that you're not. Anyway, I'm going to show a bit of reference on screen in a minute, but obviously the stuff that we're drawing along to is available for members. It's really cheap, guys. It's like $3 a month to have access to the reference to all the live streams. I think that's a pretty good deal, if I say so myself. Obviously, I'm bound to say that, aren't I? So you'll notice, as I'm drawing drapery, you'll start to see all these triangles. They really are, like, if you have to instill an idea down into like a single word, drapery is triangles. I think you get more mileage from that as a concept than just about anything else. It is a slight oversimplification, but the spirit of the idea really is as simple as that. Look, triangles, triangles, they're everywhere. Okay. So there's an idea coming down here. It's hard to see though, it's kind of obscured by this stick. triangle, triangle, triangle. Yep. And this point is going to be made even clearer in a moment, and then you're going to start looking at drapery around you, and I'm telling you, all you're going to see is triangles. Just get in some of these. I don't want to belabor these drawings. I'm going to, you know, this is probably going to be like another few minutes on this drawing, and then we'll move on to the next one, because I really want to show you guys what I'm talking about here. All right. The other thing that is really worth keeping in mind when doing drapery is look for opportunities to simplify shapes and tone. It really is one of those things that if you copy literally what you see, you run a very real risk of getting into trouble. Like, this is very much a simplification of what's actually going on here. But hopefully it will do the job. Like, this box is sitting across here, something like that. All right. Okay. Generals are hard. Depends, Hemant. The General 6B, which I'm working with here, are pretty soft, but they do come hard. I think you can get HBs. Amaris, now you are a member by the looks of things. Well, welcome. If you go to the community chat tab on my channel, I think probably 2 down, you will find a link to the reference for this month. And it's hosted on my website. So you click that link, you'll be directed to my website, and you'll see all of the reference there. Well, I'm very happy to have you along, Amaris. We do this twice a week, every week. So usually Mondays, it's usually on a Monday, and then Thursday. And Monday is usually more like this, a little bit more educational. Thursday is a bit more just figure drawing related. And the Mondays are going to morph. We're going to do heads, we're going to do animals, we're going to do animation design, design language. I'm going to talk about all of this stuff. With that said, Lulu, welcome, you made it. Doing good, thanks Lulu, doing very good. And we are talking drapery today. It would be better if you displayed the reference pic as well. Nit, did you not hear the conversation? And also, just so you guys know, there is beside the fact that somehow I have to try and scratch together a small living doing this, there is a reason I don't put the reference on the screen, which is I would get kicked off YouTube in a heartbeat. Okay? So that $3 a month that I charge, A, it kind of guarantees to me, at least on some degree, that you're probably 18, and B, it means that you can then see the reference which is on my website. I'm not just putting all the reference on the screen. We'll actually be putting something on the screen right now to describe this, because I'm very kind. No, but well, because I think education is really important, and I want you guys to all understand this, whether you're members or not. That's the truth of it. So, with that said, let's have a look at some images. Now, I have to just figure out the best way to show you guys this stuff. All right, just give me a second here. I put you guys over here. Sorry, I have multiple displays, and I need to just make sure that the display that I put this stuff on is on the right one. But I can still see what you guys are talking about. Hemant says, you got any commission work on figure drawing or any other? Well, normally my day job was working in animation, but I haven't worked in animation in over a year. So I need to make this my living sooner or later, so I need to step up my game. All right, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to look at this. I've been talking triangles, right? Hold on, I need to get rid of this awful music. Thank you. Okay. All right, let me share my screen. La da da. There we go. Guys, what did I say? Triangles. We have a point of tension, or a support point, right? Up here, for example. Maybe you can see my tiny little arrow. I'm guessing you can. Oh, okay. And look at the way that the drapery tends to form the shape of triangles, right? And we can subdivide. So look, see? This is a simple subdivision. You could divide these in many ways, right? But the point being is there's a reoccurring theme: triangle, 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 triangle. Once again, what's the brilliance of that as a concept for us? It means that we can keep our design language separate from what we do for the human form, right? Let me show you another example. Here we go. Triangles. Don't believe me? Look. See that? Right? So, for example, we have to think about the human form as a glorified coat hanger. Here, at the shoulder, we have a point of tension, right? Or at least a point, an origin point for where a lot of these creases are starting, right? Or folds. Because this is an origin point, you can see that's actually very few, if any, wrinkles at this point. But they all kind of seed from this point coming down this way, coming down obviously down here. This one is another point where we have the same thing happen again. The same from the hand, right? So what are we ultimately looking at here? We have 5 different types of folds. In my opinion, 5 to 6 to 7. Why do I say that? Because there's a couple that are not on this diagram here. And flowing, I think, is a bit of a push. Because I think flowing is an amalgam of some of the other types of folds, right? But the pipe fold is super important. That's this one here, this little fella. The pipe fold, a single point of origin. This could be a shoulder, right? In this case, it's just, you know, a piece of material pinned. Look at the look at the way that all of these lines, like look at this line here, for example, right? We can't see it, but ultimately it continues its journey up to here, right? Now that's important. Same thing here, right? If we just look at this one, what you sometimes see people do is this line here, for example, kind of meanders off this way because they've kind of forgotten where it actually ultimately has an origin point. But this line here, once again, we continue our journey, it continues up to here, right? So here we have obviously two points of, you know, generation points, let's say. But once again, look at the way we have large triangular ideas and then subdivisions from that. Same in here, large triangular ideas and subdivisions. Okay, zigzag fold is basically an elaboration of the drape or diaper fold, in as much as it's a kind of a compressed version of it, but we start getting this zigzag kind of shape. But once again, even though it's zigzag, what is it? That's right, it's triangles. Okay, couple of things down here that I think are worth looking at. We have what's called a half lock, which you can see on your own arm if you're wearing a jumper, and we have a spiral fold. Now, one thing to keep in mind, when you're drawing this, make sure that you don't cut the, because here's what happens. So here's what can happen. If you don't draw the form underneath, which many people don't, right? Even though it's just a very loosely suggested, I've drawn the form of where the arm is underneath. What can happen is if you don't do that is your crease could cut into where the arm should be. And people will go, oh, that looks weird. Why does it look weird? Well, it looks weird because, once again, they haven't followed the form and the volume and the mass of the object in which the material is draped around. Okay? So we will continue to look at these ideas as we go. Now, just one other thing I think is worth noting with drapery. The larger the folds, the more it is a suggestion of a heavier material. What do I mean by that? Well, imagine like silk, for example, the opposite of that. Silk generally is going to create lots more folds and lots more smaller folds than, say, canvas, right? Or a tarpaulin or something like that, right? Which will make larger, chunkier folds. So when you're drawing your folds, keep in mind the scale at which you're drawing the folds relative to the object that not only that they're on, but the relative to the material that the fold is made from. Okay, does that make sense? I will reiterate that as we go. But I've seen cases where people will put a lot of tiny little folds into an area where the material is clearly like a heavier material, and then something goes off, right? Something doesn't read right, and you break the illusion. So just be mindful of that. Down here are some images relating to folds and how they're used in animation, but that's probably a story for another day. Okay, so let's go back to our drawing. Okay, does that make sense? Let me know if you guys have questions, okay? Because to me it makes sense, but you know. Yes, triangles, that's your name from now on. Everyone's name is triangles. You won't forget it. All right, so we are now drawing the subject that we were just looking at, the woman in the brown shawl. So we're going to do this image next. So once again, we are going to rough out her body. Yeah, let me just give you, just before we do, let me just give you guys a real quick demo on something, just to illustrate a point that I just made. Imagine we had an arm, right? A forearm, maybe coming out with something like this. right? Coming down. Maybe we've got a hand sitting in here, something like that. Okay. And we've got an arm coming up this way, right? And we've got some creases. Might have a nice chunky crease like that, coming across like this, etc. Don't let your crease line or your fold break into this form like this right here. That's forbidden, because you're breaking the illusion of the fact that there's a volume or a mass underneath. So what you want to do is you want to do this type of thing, right? Maybe it goes around the form like that. And then you can have a few little creases. Just be mindful of the fact that there is a volume underneath your drapery, and don't cut into the form here or anywhere, right? That's important. Okay. Alrighty, so folds should always follow the flow of the form. Well, here's something that's very interesting, and we've discussed this with anatomy before, so I'm just going to do another real quick demo. In fact, let me use the same piece of paper, just in the interest of, you know, not burning down the planet any quicker than we have to. Okay, let me just show you one other thing. We've discussed this many times, but we've always discussed it in the idea of anatomy, which is, let's say we've got a form, right, like a cylinder, let's say, doing that and going away from us, okay? Straightforward. We've always discussed the fact that anatomy, whether it's anatomy or whatever, you always want to keep things moving in the same direction, right? So if we imagine we have a series of tennis balls, one stacked behind the other, behind the next, like that. All of these lines are moving in the same direction. If we start to put a line coming in this direction, we really very quickly start to kill the illusion of things moving back in space, right? So we've had situations before where we've talked about this in terms of kind of like a, it could be an upper torso, right? Something like that. Maybe the lower torso's here, etc. We got a person kind of, you know, something like this, going away from us. What we've discussed in the past is the idea that, like, say, for example, the model is a female, and let's say we're looking at this cylinder kind of like this, and there's a very good chance that her breast is going to be sitting on the form something like this, right? Because it's sitting on top of this rib cage, it's sitting on top of this cylinder, right? Now, we've talked before about the idea that, well, you know, we always think about a breast hanging down, so what if I draw this? Well, now we've suddenly lost this illusion of things moving back in space, right? We want to keep everything moving in this direction. Even if you see something doing this, like a shadow, for example, my advice would be to change it. Why do I bring all of this up again? Because drapery needs to follow the same rules. So if we've got a nice piece of drapery coming down like this, you're going to want to have it move in this direction, maybe something like that, right? Like, imagine it's doing something like that, piece of drapery. What you want to avoid is your drapery coming down and doing this. Because once again, as per this concept, you kill the idea of the thing moving back in space, moving back this way. Okay. Oops. Now, all right, let's get on with the next drawing. I already know I'm not going to like that song. There we go. All right, let me just change my pencil. The weight of the material changes how you draw the triangle. It will influence the overall mass of said triangle. Right, Noah? Does that make sense? Yeah, it does make your teeth itch. I agree. You lost me on the breast concept, says Tina. Okay, no problem. Let me show you again. I think this is important. So please, for everyone, please be patient while I go through this concept one more time. Okay. Let's imagine I've got a model in foreshortening. Okay, foreshortened form. This is the rib cage doing something like this, right? Then maybe we've got the lower torso would be sitting here, something like this, right? Center line coming down this way, etc. ACIS is coming down this way. Something like that. Maybe we've got a knee sitting here, going down this way. Probably got some foreshortening on this, right? So the cylinder's going to be sitting something like that. Then we can come down to the knee, etc. Okay. So there's a rib cage in here, right? Sitting in here, something like that. Okay, good enough. Right. Head is going back this way, maybe something like that. Okay? Clear. Now, when we're drawing a view like this, if you actually look at the model, there's a very good chance, because this is a cylinder, right? Imagine this is basically, it's a box or a cylinder or it's a hybrid, it doesn't really matter. The point is, it's a volume, a mass that's going back in space, right? Going back this way, right? So imagine like I took a string of spaghetti and I just laid it down like this. It would do something like this, right? And then it would do that. That makes sense, right? So if you just took it, you lay it down, it would be on the floor here, then it would come around, it would drape across the volume, the mass, and then sit like that, right? So if we take that same concept, if I was drawing a breast sitting on this volume, right? It's going to be sitting something like this. Okay, pectoral muscles coming down, the breast is sitting here, but because we're dealing with this box, it's going to be sitting like this, right? In the same way that our spaghetti, like if we took, like, let's say this is, let's just, for the sake of just simplicity, let's say this is a ball of clay, right? A ball of clay. If I laid that ball of clay on here, it would sit something like this, right? Make sense? No, that would be sitting there. Okay. In that same way, that volume, that mass of the the breast would be sitting on top of this cylinder like this, right? And if we could imagine lines is doing something like that. That is moving in perspective. It's kind of like the noodle principle. Now, what happens is, if you're just drawing let's say we're just looking at the rib cage here from straight on, right? Standing figure, manubrium, something like that, pectoral muscles coming down, and the breast would be sitting like this, right? With me? That makes sense. Now, what can happen is, because people have in their mind, generally speaking, that when you're looking at a breast, it tends to hang down like this. So what happens is, when they get to a pose like this, they go, well, breast lines go down in this direction. So they do this. But look how this destroys the idea of things moving back in space. We need to keep things moving in the same direction as the overall kind of geography of the volume, right? So this could be a noodle. It could just as easily be a shadow. You might very well see a shadow coming across this form, coming in this direction. I would suggest that you still want to switch its direction to this, so that if this is a shadow, it's still moving in the same direction as the form that it's sitting upon, if that makes sense. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Tina, let me know, because if it doesn't, I will try and explain it. But this is the concept of us, you know, if we're doing a core shadow, it's going to be sitting something like that. I'm going to avoid doing anything that's going to come in this direction, right? Because that breast just looks wrong, right? Because it's not moving in the direction that the volume that it sits on, okay? It's fascinating. In my opinion, it's fascinating. How would you show the mass of a thicker material? Well, really what it comes down to is the volume. So so while we're on the subject, let's look at that. It's a good question. Okay, let's come back to the arm analogy. Because it really just comes down to scale and volume. But let's come back to the idea of an arm. Okay, got an arm doing something like this, hand is coming down, sitting, the volume of the hand is sitting in here. Okay, this is the wrist, this is the forearm, and this is the bicep and tricep going up this way to the shoulder. Okay? If I do, let's say I want to suggest that there's silk. This person is wearing a very, very fine, very thin silk shirt. Okay? There's a very good chance that there's going to be a lot of wrinkles, a lot of small wrinkles, right? And a lot of kind of this kind of idea, right? This is going to be going on, especially around where the elbow is, but you're even going to notice it, you know, further up the form. There's going to be a lot of fine kind of line action going on, right? So this might suggest something very, very thin. Whereas if I want to say this person is wearing a regular jumper, for example, well, there's a very good chance that my overall wrinkles are going to be, there's going to be slightly less of them, and it's going to be a little bit more, and they're going to have a little bit more volume to them, right? Sitting in here. That makes sense? If they're wearing canvas, well then this is just going to, this whole idea is just going to magnify, right? Because they're wearing a material that's really kind of too thick and very uncomfortable for the human body. But you know, we would suddenly end up with this very aggressive, volume-wise, very aggressive, you know, folds. So that's kind of the concept. That's a complete mess of a drawing, but hopefully you get the idea. I would say the best thing to do in this situation, Noah, would be, and I've done this exercise myself, take different materials. I'm sure there's a very good chance that you might have them around the house, right? Look at a big, heavy, thick curtain and just, you know, whether you pop it on a table or even just on the floor, look at the size of the folds and how the folds act. Then take, you know, something very, very light and do the same kind of action with it and make an observation, right? That's really what it kind of comes down to, is observation of how different materials react volume-wise. You're very welcome, Tina. I'm glad that helped. Hopefully it did. Good. Feels like school. Well, yeah, hopefully you're learning, and hopefully it's not too painful. Genuinely amazing tips. Great, thank you. You think they would teach us at art school, but they don't. Yeah, no kidding, they don't. And something I take great exception to, Amaris, that there's a lot of non-teaching going on at school when it comes to art. Yep, but they'll happily have you come up, attend every day for 4 years and let you leave at the end of it and not know this stuff. It's a shame. Anyway, that's why we're here, right? At least we're doing it somewhere. Okay, we are literally nearly an hour into this session and we've done one drawing. Doesn't really matter though, because I think what we've been talking about is super important. Any particular art piece that you would recommend to study? Jose, when it comes to, okay, while we're at it, let's have a look at something else real quick. I'm just going to, just give me a second, I'm going to pull something up. Okay. Wasn't planning on showing you guys this stuff, but it can't hurt. I believe this is Leonardo da Vinci, I want to say. It's either Leonardo or Michelangelo. I'm pretty sure it's Leonardo da Vinci. It is a study, obviously some type of oil, possibly. So I would strongly recommend that you look at sculpture. Could be a really good place to start, right? And look at material. I think just generally look at actual real world material. Right? This is actually not my reference. I really shouldn't be using it. But this is a sculpture. This is actually a sculptor, a drapery study of a sculpture. Oh, sorry, a sculpture of a drapery. It's a drapery study sculpture of a piece of drapery. But once again, same rules apply, right? We're seeing the same ideas over and over. Look at this, a very thin material generally creates much smaller wrinkle pattern, and we end up, so the material is influencing, whereas, you know, this material, well, this is actually a painting. Oh no, this isn't a painting. This is kind of regular cotton, I would say. So it's acting fairly regular, if that makes sense. This is a very thin material, right? And look at how everything, scale-wise, everything kind of works to that idea. So there you go. Okay. All right. Hope that's useful. Let's draw. Let's do our next pose. Yeah, exactly. This is, we'll give ourselves a pass on getting deep into this stuff. Yeah, you could, like, honestly, like, take a piece of material. Hold on. I'm going to show you guys this one other thing because I think it's important. Sorry. I literally, this was a while back now. This was years ago I did this. But I took a piece of material. This is in our old house, actually. But here's the thing, this is interesting. Look at the way the heavy curtain, look at the way that the curves, the folds and everything are stiffer than on this thinner material here. This is a very light kind of wool, I think. But you see, we've got all the same kind of conceptual stuff that we've been talking about. We don't need to go very far to kind of to test these things for ourselves, right? But I do think it's interesting when you look at like how these curves react on the heavier curtain as opposed to the folds and that of the lighter material, right? So there you go. Something for us to keep in mind. Whereas here, this is interesting. Look at, once again, a different material. Look at how much more complex, in a way, the fold patterns are because it's so light, and it's obviously it's reacting to the light in a very different way as well. So every material is going to have different properties, and it's stuff that we want to be mindful of. As you know, we can do. This is the beauty of it, is we can study this stuff without leaving our homes, really. We've all got material at hand. So yeah, it's good. All right. That's great to hear, Strange Brew. Thank you so much. Good stuff. It looks like thin sheet metal, right? Hey, Rick. Hope you're doing good, man. Okay, let's draw this next pose. So this is standing three-quarter view that we were looking at earlier of our female subject in the brown Jedi uniform. So once again, I am going to very lightly kind of block in my model here. I don't need to go crazy with it, but I do want to, I once again, the model is a glorified coat hanger, so I want to be thinking in those terms of when I hang my drapery. Can't see any of this stuff, it's all obviously under the clothes. Doesn't really matter. Coming down to about there, going off the page there, off the camera. There we go. Head of the humerus, about here. His arm is coming down this way. Once again, we don't need to belabor this anatomical stage, but we do want to understand roughly where things are. Okay, so let's get into the drapery. So this is coming up this way. And then obviously we got this tension point here. And this is hanging forearm sitting there. This drapery is hanging across, coming down like so. Sitting on her forearm here. Coming down this way, down. Her elbow is here. So this stuff is coming out this way. We can't see it, but you can see this material, that its origin point is probably around here, then it reveals itself here, coming down like so, like that. Take care, Tina. The dress has embodied the texture of torn toilet paper. Yeah, it does have that energy, right? Okay, so her hand is here. She's holding basically a lot of pipe folds. And they're coming down this way. Sitting somewhere in there. Trying to think large ideas. Boom. Okay. Adios, Rick. Take care, my friend. That little crease that outlines her silhouette. I have no idea how to type this word. It's really cool. The little crease that outlines her silhouette. Do you mean the one coming down here, Lily? I'm not sure which one you mean. up with this music? Why has it gone so weird? Let's see what happens. Okay. Forearm coming from through here. The other thing is try and keep things organic. There can be a tendency, especially when doing stuff like this, you know, for repetition to creep in. And we want to try and avoid that where possible. Amaris asks, how would you approach painting this drapery? Anything particular to consider? Absolutely, Amaris. Okay, so here's the thing. Once again, I'm going to have to show you guys some reference for this when we're done with this drawing. Keep your tonal relationships simple, in as much as avoid complexity at all costs. There will be 1,000 halftones luring you to reveal them, to show them. They will ultimately confuse you and the viewer. You want to make an incredibly clear statement as in to what is in light and what is in shadow. And I'm going to show you exactly what I mean now. I'm not with this drawing. I'm going to show you on reference, because I'm not putting light and tone into this. Not really. Just going to maybe knock this back just a little bit. But, okay, I think that's probably a good place to call it with this drawing. All right. Yeah, let me show you what I mean. I'm seeing triangles inside the subdivisions. Absolutely, you are. Nice one, Noah. Glad to hear it. Awesome. Yeah, let's look very quickly at what I was just talking about. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up, or I'm just trying to get it together here. Just give me a second, guys. Okay. All right. If we look at this example once again, look how many halftones there are and shadows, and you know, the lighting, the complexity of the lighting on this is absolutely insane. There's a ton of different halftones. There's a ton of different shadow tones. Like we're all over the map. If you actually try and faithfully replicate this, in my opinion, you're going to end up with absolute noise. So, what do I suggest? Initially, your first stage of development when painting this type of thing should be, hold on, coming back to this. Let's just use this one as an example. What is in light and what is in shadow? We have shadow here, we have shadow here. Notice that all of the shadow, irregardless of whether it's here or here or here, it is all in the same tonal range, right? It's all the same. And everything in the lit side of the form is the same, right? Same here, same here. These read, in my opinion, if I say so myself, these read very clearly as in what is in shadow and what is in light. Now, if you looked at a reference for this, this could be a different tone to this, to this, to this, to this, to this. Like every one of these could be a slightly different tone. If you try and chase that, you're going to be in absolute trouble, right? It's going to really, it's not going to work. So my advice would be, at least as an initial concept, what is in light, what is in shadow, and keep it as simple as possible. I say this for the figure too, right? Like, ignore reflected light, ignore highlight, all of that initially. What is in light, what is in shadow? If we go back to our example from the Da Vinci, if you squint, right, just looking at that, and I'm keeping it small deliberately, because you can tell what is in light and what is in shadow, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. As a colleague of mine used to say, and I think it's very sage advice, it should read as well on a stamp as it does on a billboard, right? That's important, that statement, I think. That reads, we can keep it that small and it reads, right? Now, we can pull in, what do we start to see as we go in slightly? Well, we start to see some reflected light, some bounced light coming off, light that's bouncing off here, coming back and lighting the form here. We're starting to see a little bit of, you know, tonal work, complexity of tonal work in the lit and the shadow side. But they are generally very well separated from each other, right? Coming back to looking at it small. It works. What's in light, what's in shadow. Get that relationship right first. Then you can start looking at, oh, well, actually, there's a little bit of bounce light here, and that's going to help differentiate. And this is really dark in here, right? So this is my darkest dark is this passage here, and here, for example, these are going to full black. Okay, that's fine. But find that simple relationship first. Okay? Coolio. All right. Makes sense, right? Makes sense. I know it makes sense. Now, next pose. Let me just get chat back up. All right. if in doubt, squint. Squint and simplify. Squint and simplify. Super important. Cell shading is a type of shading, if memory serves. Yeah, look, it's basically, it's the way that back in the day you would give shadows to animated characters, right? You'd be painting those on cell. You could call it that in its simplest form. But here's the thing. The biggest problem that I find that students have is simplifying their light and their tone. And going back to the cell shading style is actually, it reads the best, right? Forget how many halftones you actually see in front of you. What's actually going to read well? This is where your interpretation of things is so important. To not just blindly copy 10,000 different halftones and then scratch your head wondering why your piece is a complete mess, right? Generally speaking, you want to keep it less, right? The less is more. Okay. Next pose. How do you show overlap or depth? The drapery seems flat. No, well, hopefully you can see how you can give it depth from what I was explaining there. So I'm only reading your comment now, but hopefully that made sense, what I was saying there. Do you think it's possible to push beyond the two-tonal rule in a way to create some kind of aesthetic yet controlled noise? Absolutely, 100%. Look, it's better to simplify initially, right? You can then, as I was saying, you can add the bounce light. You can add the highlights. You can add the different stuff, but but break it down. First, find what is in light, what is in shadow. Then you can find the halftones in the lit side of the form, or the halftones in the shadow side of the form. But here's the thing, and we've talked about this a number of times, and I think it's super important. Decide which side of the form that you're showing the halftone in. Hold on, I've got an image here. I'm going to try and pull up because I think this discussion is good stuff. Let me see if I can find it. Just give me a sec. Okay. I'm just pulling this into Photoshop now. And I'm going to share my screen once again. This is educational though. This is good stuff. Okay. Let's have a look at an image together. A painting this time. Now, look at the way, I know it's very dark, it's very hard to actually see. Let me get rid of that noise. All right, there we go. Look at the way everything in the shadow side of the form is essentially taken to the same tonal range. Yes, there is a tiny bit of reflected light here, for example, in this region here and here, right? It's actually probably just the underpainting coming through. But all of the shadow side has been simplified. And it's notice that there is no color in the shadow side. It's all brown. All the shadow is a tone of brown, right? All the color is happening in the lit side of the form. Now this is an extreme example. You will find examples of this which it's not quite this extreme, but it's a great example of only showing detail in one side, either the lit side or the shadow side. And obviously in this case we're showing tone in the lit side of the form. When you start trying to show half tone and reflected light and blah 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 in both sides of the form, or say you're trying to show that in the shadow side and then you're trying to show half tone and highlight and all of that in the lit side, the eye doesn't know where to look, right? This is a really strong painting, and once again, look how small I can go. It's reading, right? Reads fine. Reads fine little as a postage stamp or as a billboard. It reads well. This is essentially the cell shading that Lulu's talking about, right? What's lit, what's in shadow. Yes, we've got subtleties, and you can talk about what's going on in the lit side. There's a lot going on. This is a very complex painting in many ways. But this concept, I think it's so important because people miss the point. Look at the same with the drapery. If I just go small, what's in the lit side of the form and what's in the shadow side? Yes, there's half tone or reflected light in here, and there's a bit of half tone. But generally speaking, what's in the lit side of the form is what matters here, and it reads really clearly as a strong graphical shape, right? This whole passage all the way coming through here and this, and then rhythmically this tying up and all the rest, and then this, all of these things read well together. But it's graphically, it's a very, very strong painting, right? There's a reason it's a famous painting, although for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, but it's a very, very graphically strong idea as far as what is in light, what is in shadow. And this is what you want to go. This, in my mind, this is at least a very, very good thing to be aiming for, right? Yes, we can see that there's a little bit of reflected light here and there, and it's super, 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 super subtle, right? Gosh, in fact, I feel like I see it less the more I zoom in, but there's a little bit of reflected light in there for the armpit. This is a masterpiece, right? But this is the thing. People just want to overcomplicate and overmodel and over-explain. Like, drawing is much simpler than that, right? What's in light, what's in shadow. Yes, you've got highlights and all of that, but the spirit of what I'm saying, hopefully, is clear. Okay. We really need to do some drawing. All right, sorry, let me get back to where we were. Oh, all right, this is the next pose for those who don't have access to the reference. Now you can see it. Okay. Okay, a cell is a piece of acetate, a piece of plastic, Lulu, which they used to ink the character onto, right? And then they would turn it over and they would put the paint on the back. This is in animation. And that's how you get the nice solid colors of the character. I've got one on my wall right there, although unfortunately you guys can't see it. Here, let me get it. Why not? Gosh, we are not getting anything done today, are we? Hold on. Here we go. Cobweb. This is a cell. As you can see, it's basically, can you see that? It's a piece of plastic. And what they would do, now this obviously doesn't have shadow, but what they would do is I don't know if you can actually see it. Let me go see if I can go close up for you. It's actually Xeroxed, it's photocopied. This was one way that they would do it. The other they would hand ink it. But this would actually be photocopied onto the plastic. And then you would flip it over and you would paint it on the back. Right? See that? So it's just like plastics, a sheet of plastic. And then you'd put this down with the background underneath it, take a picture, put the next one down, take a picture, etc. And that's how you create animation. So that's so when you hear the term cell shading, that's what that is. That's essentially a cell. Okay. Cool. Who is the artist? I don't honestly remember the guy's name who drew that. I painted that. I painted that when I was about 16 years old. But I don't remember who the animator was. Unfortunately, a London-based animator though. The other thing to keep in mind is that your halftones, the halftones in your lit side of the form, there's nowhere in the shadow side of your form that should be as light as a halftone in the lit side of your form, and vice versa. Okay? Is this why the head has less light than the shoulder? Head is closer to the light. Well, you will notice with that painting that we looked off at Artitude that as we went further down the form, the intensity of light does drop off, so they were definitely being mindful of that. If you practice for 2 hours every day, how long will it take me to paint like this? Uday, how long is a piece of string? It's an impossible question to answer. But here's the thing, it is and it isn't. If you practice 2 hours every day with the right teacher, Uday, with the right teacher, you could be painting that well. There's so many skills. There's the drawing side of it, there's painting. Anyway, put it this way, you get there in a few years if you really, but you know, whether you'll paint as well as that, is, you know, there's a lot going on in that painting. I wouldn't want to prescribe a number to it, but you could become a very competent painter in a few years with dedicated practice. Okay, I can't say you'll paint as good as that. You'll probably paint differently to that, frankly, and that's okay. So depth is shown through light and shadow 100%. It can also be shown though diagrammatically. I should really start drawing. Otherwise we're just chatting and we are meant to be drawing. Yeah, exactly, Lulu. Straights. They're there. So once again, draped figure, but I'm going to give myself a sense of where her torso is. And this leg is coming down this way, knee is about here, tibia going off this way. The other leg, we have no idea, but I'm going to guess that she's kneeling, probably doing something like that. Caravaggio, that's right. Thank you, Jäger. Yeah. I should have remembered that. Okay. Drapery. really cool learning what a cell was. I always thought it was something recent. That's the irony of it, isn't it? It's cells really stopped being used by about the mid-90s, I want to say. I actually remember when the studios kind of transitioned to digital painting, and cell painting was, along with background painting, the cell painting was one of the first things to go that was digitized. Do you remember we were told by management that we needed to make sure every single line was completely closed off, or the digital wouldn't know how to fill that space and it would go everywhere? So, yeah. With today's resources available online, or even with a teacher, this is achievable in a year, honestly, but not likely. I agree with the spirit of what you're saying, Lulu. I would not necessarily want to advertise that as a truth. Yes, I think that, look, that painting it's as wonderful as it is. It's not technically an insanely complicated painting, right? But his understanding of drapery could take a year. His understanding of anatomy could take years, right? Like there's a lot of elements, and I don't think we can separate them. We can't bit part it out and just say learning to paint like that would take a year. I agree with the spirit of what you're saying, but there's so many other factors, right? Stitches. How should I think? As focal points, some kind of line break or something else. I'm not sure exactly, Jose, what stitches you're referring to, but I would say this: anything that you draw that has a lot of repetition, like for example with her dress here, there's a break here, right below the breast. There's kind of like the material, you know, I forget what the technical name of this is in dressmaking, but there's a break here, and we can see a lot of pleats and small things. If that's what you mean by stitches, my question to you would be, anything that you show with repetition, especially small detail, there's a very good chance the eye is going to get drawn to that, right? Ask yourself, is that something that you want your eye to, the eye of your viewer to get drawn to? So we've got this fold coming over this way and coming down like so. And then we've got this coming like so. Yeah, that's Jose. Hopefully I answered your question. It's Isaac. I still stand for hand-drawn things. Yeah, me too. Hemant, drawing with your reference for the first time. All right, good. Yeah, we have discussed the teeth issue, and we have the same issue. We can have that potentially that same issue in art too. Any shape or any form that is highly repetitive, ribs, fingers, all of these types of things, we need to be super careful of how we represent them, in my opinion. Because yeah, it can get out of hand quickly. And because repetitious shapes are not generally, you know, like, how do I explain this? I was going to say generally not found in nature, but we're talking about teeth and fingers, which are clearly found in nature. Anyway, we have to be careful of things, repetitious shapes starting to look unnatural, if that makes sense. Because they can have a tendency to go in that direction, all right. Penny's doing great, thanks, Hemant. Yeah, she is growing like a weed. I will, I'll either have her make an appearance or I will bring a photo next time. She's grown like crazy. And she's just a joy to be around. I love myself that dog. She lost her first tooth the other day, her puppy tooth. So yeah, her big teeth will be coming in, which can't happen soon enough, frankly, because she has little shark teeth right now, and she's got a powerful bite on her. So I'll be glad to see those little shark teeth gone, to be honest. I think today has been very interesting. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If there are particular topics like what we've discussed today that you would like to do a deep dive on these Monday sessions, please let me know. And if you don't think of it right away, that's absolutely fine. You could always, you know, shoot me a message or even just leave it in the comment of the video after the fact. But you know, so I was saying before, I do want to make these Monday sessions, you know, a space for the sharing of ideas to happen, let's say. You're welcome, Jose. I'm glad I could help. Bit off topic, but fully saturated colours tend to be used to describe magic because they're not often found in nature. If they are, it's flowers, poisonous things. Yeah, very good point, Lulu. Yeah. Yeah, very, very interesting. Look at the way we have this zigzag shape that we were discussing earlier, right? Like coming through, zigzag concept coming into play here. Deep dive into hair would be amazing. That would be fun, wouldn't it, Lucas? Yeah. Yeah. I should be writing these down. Sorry, hold on. I'll send myself a message. Hair. Hair's a great one. All right. Yeah. I enjoyed this stream's highly educational. It would be nice to have a drapery session focused on jeans. Here's the thing. Fair enough, Jose. My feeling on that would be that, in fact, if you go back and you check out what we've discussed here, it's all going to apply to denim, right? Denim is obviously heavier than cotton, but marginally, right? You know, the fold language is similar. We could certainly, when we do another drapery session, we could certainly add, you know, let's say different types of clothing, not just flowing dresses. We could look at like people's, you know, as the Americans say, pants, not meaning underpants, but like trousers, shirts. We could certainly look at more materials. In fact, it's interesting because when I was picking the reference for today, I was looking, I have some reference of some old peasants, people in peasant costumes. I thought that could be kind of interesting to draw too. Maybe we'll do that soon. It's like, you know, a ye old-timey peasant session, draw people in the old get-up. It'd be kind of a bit of fun, wouldn't it? Yeah. That wouldn't be the first time, Lula, I've sent myself a memo to future me and future me has gone, you are insane. That's great, Amaris. I'm so glad to hear it, that you're enjoying it. Good stuff. Me too. I find this stuff endlessly fascinating. I'm so glad to be able to share these ideas. Okay, let's see. We've got just a bit over 15, and we've got. I might do let's see, because this next pose is fairly similar in as much as it's a compressed pose to the one we've just done. Okay, for those of you who have the reference in front of you, it's time to make a choice. We've got 3 poses to go. We're only going to do one of them, right? So of the 3 that are left, so we've got this one where she's kind of kneeling with her arm pointing out like she's pointing. Number 2 is a standing pose, very kind of majestic. And then number 3, she's kind of crouching, she's on her knees. Of these 3, which one are we going to do? 1, 2, or 3? You guys give me your feelings on which one you'd like to draw next. But keeping in mind it'll be the last pose, we'll go for about 15 on it, and that'll be that. The on guard one seems fun and simple to end on. I'm not hating that idea. Hemant says, Richard, what are stereotypes for artists? Now, Hemant, that's a... I don't know, I think it's a very, very broad question. Not quite sure I have a simple answer for that. Last one, number 3 says Joyce. Jose says number 3. Lulu's voted twice for number 2. And Joyce has voted twice for number 3. Lucas says number 1. Okay. I think that 2 says Hemant. 2. Looks like it's 3. Where's Jaeger? Come on, Jaeger. Jaeger's going to make the deciding vote. How about that? If Jaeger's still with us. Jaeger says 3. All right, 3 it is. And Chris says 3. All right, 3 it is. Manio says, can you draw majestic hands? Can I? It's a good question, Manio. The last hand, so we did a hand session, what, about a month ago. The hands are a bit sus, to be honest, that I drew. But we can do another hand session. We're definitely going to do another hand session. All right, number 3 it is. Let's do this. This is a nice one to end on too. This is good. The people have spoken and chose suffering to end on. Number 2 would have been the easiest, I agree. But the people have spoken, Lulu. I'm happy to finish on number 3 too. It's a nice pose. Okay, I need to go. Landscape. And we will do, actually we've got about 12 minutes left, so this is really, time is getting shorter. Let's do this. Once again, let's draw these things that we can't see. like that. This arm is coming back this way. Clavicle, center line is saying about here. This arm is coming down like so. And something about here. Okay, I think that should do it. Which one is number 3? It's the very last pose, Morris. I'm guessing you got that. No, I'm glad you've enjoyed it. You're going to be taking off for a while, huh? Well, glad to have you along, and you're always obviously welcome back. Yeah, she does look like she's looking for something, huh? Holding up the dress here, so we have some nice rhythmical ideas. Coming down this way. All right, where are we at? 6 minutes to go. How many hours do you draw, Richard, on average? I used to draw a lot more than I am these days. Just because I've got so many different like other things going on right now. I would say right now the majority of my drawing time is getting done during the stream. I just don't have a ton of practice time right now. I do draw outside of the stream, but it's not as often as I would either like or should, to be honest. That will hopefully change, but I don't think that's a fair representation of historically. You know, when I'm working my day job in animation, I could be drawing for, you know, 50 hours a week easily. Obviously then I'm drawing 8, 9, 10 hours a day for months on end. And there are times during my practice, you know, it's an ebbs and flows thing. But I don't draw nearly as much as I should. But you know how it is. You got other things going on in your life. Sometimes they're easier than others to be able to get down and practice. But I would recommend for anyone that's, you know, still rather fresh to this whole experience, so to speak, you should be trying to draw at least 2-3 hours a day, I would say. Maybe more if you're trying to make a living, or if you want to make a living from it. It's one thing I can actually thank the streams for, because it means that no matter what, there is a couple of hours a week that I'm going to be drawing, or a couple of times a week, you know. Because if it wasn't for the stream, there would probably be less, to be honest. But it should be more. I'm a big advocate of practice, just generally. You know, though, I talked about this before, like my philosophy about practice in general with drawing, or with it, whether it's music or whatever. And I'm always very much on the side of, it's not even about the end result, it's very much about being in the moment and the process, right? And these days I've just been focusing so much on the music that that's kind of been my outlet for that process that I talk about. So for me, I don't put too much distinction between whether it's musical practice or drawing practice. The spirit of the practice remains the same. And I'm practicing a lot of music at the moment, so I think that's really why I'm not drawing as much. That makes sense? Hopefully. I draw at least 4 hours a week, exactly. Drawing 50 hours per week sounds like very solid hand-eye coordination. Brain record. Well, yeah, but you know, if you think about it, most of that drawing, when it's for work, is drawing from my imagination. Right? There's no not drawing from reference. It's in some ways, it's a very different type of drawing again, right? Whoa. Thanks for all the art skill education. You're very welcome, Joyce. Not been to art school, so the tips and skill. That's awesome. Yeah, it is kind of crazy, isn't it, Lila? How much energy we use, the neurons use. For study. The brain. Yeah, kind of fascinating. All right, where are we at? We've just hit the time. So this stuff is all in shadow, just to help describe that just a little bit. Would you be comfortable weaving in a random additional stream where you show off a bit of your music? I enjoy fancy instruments. Maybe one day. Maybe one day, Lulu. Hang around long enough, you might see that happen. You never know. Guys. That was fun. That was good. Good session. We kind of went down a few rabbit holes there, didn't we? Necessary ones, in my opinion. I do hope that you got as much out of that as I hoped that you would. Drapery is a fascinating thing, and I think what's also really lovely about it as a idea is the fact that it gives you something to work with, and also against the human anatomy, if that makes sense, at least from a design language perspective, which I think adds to the fascination. Triangles, remember, triangles. I'm telling you, it's the key. You're going to start, if you hadn't been thinking about triangles before, I do hope that you'll look for them in your everyday life moving forward. But that was good. Guys, okay, so here's the deal. Thursday will be a regular figure drawing session. Haven't decided who we're going to draw yet. Possibly we'll go to a male model. It's been a minute, hasn't it? So let me see if I can find someone interesting for us to draw. With that said, yes, I will see you on Thursday, which is only 2 days away. Crazy, right? Just shifting this stream one day makes a difference. Next week it will go back to Monday. As far as I know, this was a one-off that we did this Tuesday stream. But that was a lot of fun. Guys, look, I'm going to get out of here. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all on Thursday. Thursday's going to be regular day. All right. Cheers. See you then. Bye now.